Recent events in Destiny have hinted at an ancient darkness enemy leading Savathun's sister Xivu Arath into battle. A being older than the universe whom gave Oryx the power to take. Today we are going to discuss what we know about ties to this character and when we might see them in the future. So let's start with what we are told this season about this entity. In terms of direct evidence, we only have a couple of voice lines, what they've told us so far, and then we'll back it up with some facts from previous lore.
By whose hand?
There are greater things in the dark than hive gods, Ikora. The Black Fleet's powers are vast. Oryx did not invent the Taken. He merely borrowed them.
I have already learned much by observation. The Taken pursued her here. Taken she once controlled. Taken that now serve a new master. Or, if Savathun is to be believed, their original master. Not her brother, Oryx, but something far older. She fears it. It commands Xivu Arath to conquer the Ascendant space surrounding the Dreaming City. To use the Taken in her campaign against us. For now. In my travels I have seen true evil. It is the worm gods that the Hive serve. It is the Black Fleet, waiting to strike. It is the entity that commands them all. The voice in the darkness. These creatures are not evil because they wield darkness. They are evil because, like Savathun and Xivu Arath, they are cruel, hateful things, with no regard for the lives of others. Some might say that includes me as well. I will let history be the judge of my guilt.
So it's the voice in the dark and is the source of evil for our enemies like the Hive and also the Black Fleet, suggesting that it's its own entity. Mara describes that Oryx borrowed the power to take, and that this being granted it or created it, not the worm gods. So that's pretty crazy when you think about it. There's the Guardian, Hive gods like Oryx, above him the worm gods, and above that this dark entity. So on the surface this seems obvious. There is the Traveler in the light, and then there's the dark and whatever the voice or being is. Thanks to some lore released back in Shadowkeep, we have a clear depiction of who this may be, or at least a good connection, and that of course is the Winnower. The Gardener and Winnower card says this. Once upon a time, a gardener and a winnower lived together in a garden. They existed because they had to exist. They had no antecedent and no constituents, and there is no instrument of causality by which they could be portioned into components and assigned to some schematic of their origin. If you followed the umbilical of history in search of some ultimate atavistic embryo that became them, you would end your journey marooned here, in this garden. In the morning, the gardener pushed seeds down into the wet loam of the garden to see what they would become. In the evening, the winnower reaped the day's crop and separated what would flourish from what had failed. The day was longer than all of time, and the night was swifter than a glint of light on a falling sugar crystal. Insects buzzed between the flowers, and worms slithered between the roots, feeding on what was and what might be. The first gradient in existence, the first dynamo of life. Rain fell from no sky. Voices spoke without mouth or meaning. A tree of silver wings bloomed, yielded fruit, shed feathers, and bloomed again. In the day between the morning and the evening, the gardener and the winnower played a game of possibilities. From the Flower Game card. In their game, the gardener and the winnower discovered shapes of possibility. They foresaw bodies and civilizations, minds and cognitions, qualia and suffering. They learned the rules that govern which patterns would flourish in the game and which would dwindle. They learned those rules because they were those rules, and in time the gardener became vexed. So we've gathered that the Traveler is the gardener, allowing the flowers to grow, while the winnower is the dark power that keeps everything in balance and weeds out what will fail. Now we've always known Destiny had light and darkness, but Shadowkeep was the first time we heard the name Winnower. We've heard Gardener before in terms of the Traveler itself, But this was the first time they started building this story of the darkness, with the arrival of the pyramid ships as well. So the question would be, is the voice in the dark the Winnower, or is the Winnower just the force of the dark in general, combating the light? Mara and Petra mentioned how the voice in the dark gave Oryx the power to take, that he was merely borrowing this power and wasn't the creator. In the Books of Sorrow from the Taken King, we see where Oryx met with the Deep to take these powers. He speaks to the worm god Akka about the situation. Said Akka, "You have not the strength." But this was a lie. Oryx had killed Savathun, his sibling, and Zivu-Arath, his sibling, and he had the sword logic of killing them. Oryx, the first navigator, set upon his god with his sword and his words, and cut Akka to pieces, and took from those pieces the secret of calling upon the deep. He wrote this secret on a set of tablets, which he then called the Tablets of Ruin, and he wore them around his waist. Then Oryx said, "Now I may speak to the deep, the beautiful final shape. I will be king of shapes. I will learn all the secrets of our destiny." His speech to the deep is not recorded here, but it is known that he returned and he said, "Now I am Oryx, the Taken King, and I have the power to take life and make it my own." Then he went out into the universe and fought the Ecumene with his tablets, and the worm, his god, was pleased. When the three sisters went down into the depths of Fundament in search for some type of power and answer to their dying world, they encountered a Leviathan. This is before they met the worm gods. The Leviathan was a disciple of the Traveler who said this, "You must turn back, save yourselves from the deep, save the world from yourselves, you must turn back." Across the universe, as far as I see, the sky works to charge its fires, and the deep drowns the ash. For this is the deep claim. Existence is the struggle to exist. When struggle seems lost, when the safe place crumbles, everything turns to the deep to survive. So I bring up these lines because 1, it tells us about the deep, and 2, it says when the struggle seems lost, everything turns to the deep to survive. And what did we do in Beyond Light, and what are we doing now? Using darkness ourselves.
Focus your power. How interesting.
So Oryx learned from killing Akka how to commune with the deep. This is how he obtained the powers for the Taken King. Other characters that we know have communed with the darkness, we believe, are characters like Callus. He says he met them at the edge of the void and was changed forever.
I was lost once, exiled from my people, floating aimlessly amongst the stars. But then I found it. Something breathtakingly glorious. The truth of the universe. The ascendant artifact you've returned to me is an echo of that truth. You and I will need it before the end comes. The future can't be far.
And also Mara appears to have some background knowledge on it as well, thanks to her distributary shenanigans when they all were created.
We awoken were born of light and dark. Our perspective on the universe is a complex one. The light is not inherently good, as your warlords of the Dark Age so clearly demonstrated. In spite of Zavala's preconceptions, darkness is not inherently evil. Some among you already discovered this on Europa.
Riga's spirit ascended higher into the sky where she hoped to reunite with her brother. Instead, she met the thing that sent the storm. A bottomless well of grief, unreachable by reasoning or bargaining or violence. A voice in the darkness.
So that's what we know briefly. This is the father of the dark, the evil that gave Oryx and the worms, which they called gods, their powers. The next question would be, when will we see this enemy? We know Bungie likes to tease these antagonists, so far in advance like they did with Savathun and those before her. So will this enemy appear in the final conclusion of the Light and Dark Saga Final Shape, as Oryx and the Leviathan talked about a final shape? Or will it be before that in something like Lightfall or even Witch Queen? Savathun's throne world houses a dark secret in the Raid pyramid ship. My guess is this is tied to it at some degree, maybe not the being itself, but perhaps a messenger. We also know that Xivu Arath hunts Savathun on behalf of another. What other would this be besides the Winnower or this dark entity? Most likely no one. I can see us taking out Xivu in a future DLC, which then led us straight to the source of this dark creation.
The attacks against the Blind Well have become stronger lately.
Is Xivu Arath trying to rescue Savathun?
Xivu Arath has plans for her sister. They do not involve a rescue.
We are surrounded. A ring of spears pointing inward from the edges of our system. The Black Fleet could have destroyed us, and yet they have waited. Why? Savathun knows more than she lets on. It is the only reason she still lives, and she is keenly aware of that fact. It is why Xivu Arath pursues her so relentlessly. For Xivu Arath answers to the same entity as the Black Fleet. We must uncover whatever secrets she knows with the time that we have. I must reiterate, she will try to betray us. It is all that a wretched, self-serving creature like Savathun knows how to do. She needs me to free herself of her worm, but after that...
So let me know your thoughts down below about what's in the pyramid ship and in the raid in Savathun's throne world. With this darkness, what does it want? Are the light and dark the same, two powers just trying to make a balance, or is there some truth that we don't know yet which will be revealed in time? Anyway, Guardians, that's all we got for today's video on the darkness, the mysteries surrounding it, and how characters like Oryx communed with it in the past. If you'd like to see some more Destiny lore and mysteries just like this video, be sure to subscribe to the channel. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. My name's Evade, and I'll catch you Guardians in the next one.